Hey, Status Steve, please like and subscribe. This is a video about the killing of Chris Kaba by the police officer very recently. Just about to go into the statement from Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley. We'll say up front that I am very pro-police, and I do believe that they are a vital element of stopping crime, and they do a very difficult job. So I do need to know my standpoint before we watch the rest of it. That's what it is. There is a bit of grey about this one though. Okay, so we're going to break down the statement of the police commissioner first, and then we're going to look at the footage. I'm going to be objective as possible. I'm not going to give any conclusions, but I will put things out there of things to consider. But I'm not saying now I'm going to go one way or another. That's it. Let's go. All right, I need to speed this video up. Oh, that's at normal. Let's go with that.
The jury system is the cornerstone of British justice. And today, after 2 weeks of evidence, 12 men and women have cleared Sergeant Martin Blake of murder.
What he's saying is everyday people, the 12 jurors, have looked at all the evidence and they've cleared this police officer. There you go. Trial by your peers.
Over the past 2 years, Sergeant Blake has paid a huge personal and professional sacrifice. And this has been an incredibly difficult time for him and his family. And he has acted with professionalism and dignity throughout.
The question is whether he's guilty of murder, manslaughter, or should be getting off with it. Let's go on from there.
This case has had an enormous impact on many. Chris Kaba's family and friends continue to grieve the loss of a loved one, and today will be enormously difficult for them.
That is very true, and thoughts go out to anybody who's suffered any kind of loss. This video is not intended to address the family aspect of anything. It's just a completely objective, dispassionate. It's not about trying to placate anything. I'm only bothered about accuracy within the law and accuracy of statement and just analysis of facts. But from a personal level, obviously anybody who's falsely accused would be of note, and anybody who's lost any life was obviously just awful to think about, and my thoughts do go out.
Today's verdict is significant. No firearms officer sets out on duty intent on ending a life.
That's a broad, sweeping statement, my friend. I like the sentiment, but it adds absolutely nothing. We'll judge that based on the evidence, my friend. Thank you.
Their sole purpose is the complete opposite: the protection and the preservation of life.
That should be the primary goal, and we'll assess about whether that's actually what happened a little bit later. The actual incident, now we seem to get into it, the footage, slightly grey. I've watched this footage so many times now, and the more I watch it, it's less grey, I'm going to be honest. But to me, you guys can make up your own point of view.
Throughout the trial, the jury heard significant detail about the scenes facing Sergeant Blake that night. They were told that the car Mr. Kaba was driving had been linked to a reported shooting the night before.
The car was linked to a shooting the night before. Cast your mind now, this sets the scene, okay? So this sets the scene of a lot of things, which I have to kind of make a statement now. I'm not saying about blame, but in terms of the risk factor, it's not every day that a car is involved in a shooting, especially if it was only the night before. That carries some implications or some kind of unknown assessment about whether that car is still carrying firearms or whether it carries firearms at all. But that is a consideration, and that was going to be front of mind for anybody who will have anything to do with that car, knowing what it's associated with, and it's a very important point.
The suspects were still at large, and no gun had been recovered.
Okay, so whatever gun was associated with the car had not been recovered. Okay.
Armed officers bravely intervened, not knowing the risks that they were about to face.
I'm sorry to keep stopping it, but I have to, because as I say, each point is It is crucial, and this element of unknown risk, as I say, that listen, the primary consideration of an officer is not to protect the public. That's a misconception. The primary responsibility for an officer is to protect self. And that's not a theory, that's fact. The primary thing for an officer to do is to protect themselves first and then the public. Very important fact.
The court heard that Mr. Kaba tried to evade police, ramming his vehicle into others all around him.
Ramming his vehicle into other vehicles around him. Yeah, when he says others, he's not saying into others as in people as such, but that is an important point. We'll see that later.
Sergeant Blake made a split-second decision on what he believed was necessary to protect his colleagues and to protect London.
And this is where, again, it gets a little bit grey. Was it a split-second decision? We will see in the footage a little bit later.
The jury decided that was an honestly held belief and that the force used was reasonable.
And that's where we go back to the jury of your peers. They have to say it was an honest held belief that whatever his defence was, and his defence, you'll hear in a little while, was that he was protecting his colleagues.
Any fatal use of force understandably prompts huge concern amongst communities, particularly in black communities where trust in policing is low.
I'm from the black community, right? I'm from the black community, but I've also got an objective mind. My objective mind is, did this officer act reasonably and within his powers, within the law in this instance? And I say, I'm not going to get distracted into subjectivity. I'm only going to be objective, and I'm going to try and refrain from giving my own point of view where possible.
There remains much for us to do to strengthen confidence in our service, and we know incidents like this place further strain on already challenged relationships. No police officer is above the law, but we have been clear that the system holding police to account is broken.
But they have to be clear that this is where no officer is above the law. That's where that should have ended. That's where that should have ended. Let's just go and hear that again.
Relationships. No police officer is above the law, but we have been clear that the system holding police to account is broken. I worry about the lack of support officers face for doing their best.
But we have to be clear that the system holding police to account is broken. I'm not quite sure what he's talking about there, because that's the legal system, and they operate within that legal system in terms of their powers, right? So there is always, for every single police shooting, let alone a police killing, there will be scrutiny about whether that use of force was necessary, and that kind of appraisal of police is absolutely vital. So I'm not quite sure what statement he's trying to put across here, what the intent of these words actually are. He should be happy living within the confines of the law, because that means that whether his officer, what he's done is actually legal, and that should be his primary consideration, you would think. Not asking for some carte blanche so that there's no scrutiny, and I don't think that's what he's saying. Well, I hope that's not what he's saying. One more time, then we go straight forward past this.
But we have been clear that the system holding police to account is broken. I worry about the lack of support officers face for doing their best. But most of all, I worry for the public. The more we crush the spirit of good officers, the less they can fight crime.
The more we crush the spirit of good officers. Listen, if somebody does something which is legal, whether it's the police or it's the everyday public, and they're tried fairly, there's not a problem, and that should be the only standard. And given that this person has got off with it, I think he's happy about that, right? Or is he unhappy about it, thinking that he shouldn't have got off? I'm not quite sure where this part of the statement's coming from.
That risks London becoming less safe. Our armed officers respond to more than 4,000 incidents each year, but there are only 1 or 2 incidents where shots are fired.
Point taken, 4,000 incidents, 1 or 2 incidents where shots are fired. But I don't think he's saying, hopefully that he's not saying that, okay, well, we do make a few accidents. That's not what we're talking about here.
It is undeniable that they are the most professional, most accountable, and most cautious in their use of lethal force in the world. Their operations have prevented countless acts of violence across our city. Last year alone, they removed more than 400 guns from our streets. I remain humbled and deeply proud of officers who continue to protect London despite all the risks that they face.
The one thing I do want to say again is that this is a difficult job, and we're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with everyday people who, as he said, who are just trying to do their best. They're trying to do their best. And they find themselves placed in situations where they have to make split-second decisions, and that is absolutely true. And as a member of the public, obviously, our role is not to put ourselves in situations where there is a high risk of encountering high tension situations, such as driving, being associated with guns, long story short, or anything like that, which elevates the risk to other people who, in this instance, was the gun police. So I think that cannot be ignored. Let's go forwards.
They continue to have my full and my unwavering support. Thank you.
Okay, that was the statement from Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Police Commissioner. We're going to go and see some footage now. I will see you on the other side. The warning about the footage contains scenes that some viewers may find distressing. Indeed.
We're now at Dumbarton Road, continuing on.
Okay, so the police
straight through the junction.
Have been following this car
Road,
for quite some time. It was reported, I think it's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that. That is irrelevant information. But they're about to do the stop. And this is the black Audi sports car.
So all ARVs on this channel, just for your awareness, we are now just standing by for strikes. Stand by, stand by.
One thing that you need to remember as well is that this car was associated with firearms, but also the police officers are going to be amped up that they don't know what they're going into, apart from that it's associated with guns. So obviously the adrenaline is going to be pumping, and anything could happen. Let's go forwards.
Okay, we're going to do it. It's a near side indication onto Coastal Gardens. Do it here. It's a in line.
Right, we're going to see it through at real speed, and then I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to watch it again a few times. One of the key things is, there's 2 things to look at. You got the actual image on the right, but on the left you've got a representation. Now I don't know, and I don't know how it would possibly be that is GPS driven. It's possible that it's GPS driven, but then I don't know how you get the representations of the cars, or if it is, it's super smart, and I'm very, very impressed. But in any case, bottom left hand corner, the yellow dot NX121, that is the shooter. That is the shooting officer. And it's going to happen in about 45 seconds from now. And before that, we'll see other views. Let's go. If you look into the left, you see the yellow dot. That's the point that he shoots. See the yellow dot. He goes forwards. The car speeds forwards. And then he doubles back. It loops around the blue car to the front of the car. The car speeds backwards. but it's boxed in, and the shot is fired. Goes forwards, car speeds forwards, wheels are screeching, goes through to the front, shot fired. Right, we're going to see that again from the point that they jump out the car. Okay, it's going to be around about there. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to slow it down at 0.75. We're going to see it all the way through, and then I'm going to slow it down at 0.5, and we're just going to try and put it all together. Let's go. Right, so we jump out the car. The shooting officer in yellow has gone forwards. The car is sped forward. We can't see it from the view on the right. He doubles back around the blue car towards the white car, which is a police officer that's just been crashed into. The black car tries to escape, speeding backwards, and he finds himself at the front. Right, so he's already out the car. Black Audi is sped forwards. He doubles around the blue car towards the white police car that's just been crashed into. Black Audi doubles back, but he's been boxed in. Shot fired. And now we see the actual cam of the shooting officer next. Now. Jumps out the car, goes forwards. The black Audi speeds away. Crashes. He doubles around. He's looking away from the incident. Goes around the car. There's a police up. He doubles around the car, the blue car, goes to the police car as well that's just been crashed into. He's heard the screeching of the tyres. And then when he arrives at the front, he fires his gun. One more time. We're going to see it at half speed.
In line, in line, in line.
Again, so I think from this view, we don't really get a lot of information. But again, the yellow dot goes forwards. The black Audi screeches forwards, crashes into the cars. It does get wedged. Now, what is the view of the shooting officer? Is he aware what's going on? The black Audi's about to screech backwards again. When I say screech, he's going to hear those wheels go in and crash. Shot fired. So this is the penultimate view before we see the actual footage from the shooting officer. But again, he goes forwards. Audi crashes, gets wedged. Not clear whether that shooting officer would be aware of that. The brake lights would presumably be on the Audi, so he gets boxed in by the other car. Now, this would have happened a lot, right? So this is standard car boxed in situations. This car has been surrounded by many officers that probably have a better viewpoint than him, who has gone around that blue car and the police car, I would say. This is where it gets grey. And now we're going to see that final viewpoint again. And I'm not leaning either way. This is all kind of the melee of the incident. And I say these are where the jury of our peers were looking at things and they made their decision. And the decision that they made was, in the circumstances, it was justified. We'll go forwards. Here we go. He goes towards the front, towards the black Audi directly. At which point the black Audi speeding past these officers. That would be, he would be tried for attempted murder. The normal, if the outcome wasn't what it wasn't. Shooter goes around the blue car. You can hear the screeching, but you can also hear the crash. I'm going to show it one last time at the slower speed. Right, so with knowledge of absolutely everything, and again, the officer is NX121. His body-worn camera, so in the top left-hand corner, that's reconfirming that. Knowing everything, that car cannot go forwards and it cannot go back. That situation is controlled in terms of that thing's movement, that car's movement. We don't know what's on the inside of that car or anything else. We do know what it's associated with. The question for the jury would have been, would the next reasonable action have been to discharge your firearm? And to them, it was a yes. All right, so we're going to go back to, I think it was 140. I'm tempted to go even slower. Just so we don't miss anything at all. And this will literally be the last viewing. But of course, if you feel that you've seen enough, end of video. It is ridiculously slow. But it kind of does say about the melee of the situation. Black car is going to speed forwards now, the Audi, with everybody near to the car. Crashes. From his point of view, I think he would know that car's wedged in and cannot go forwards. But he would not be absolutely certain about what's going to happen behind it, especially as he kind of loops past the blue car towards the police car that has just been crashed into. Right, now, the police car, he doesn't know necessarily that police car is going to have boxed in that black Audi, right? And he said that he was fearful that was looking out for the safety of his fellow officers, and we are at night, and he's known for guns, and he's driving his car at high speed. And this is something for the jury to deliberate, and we now say we know the outcome. Let's continue. Car speeds backwards, crashes, and this is the point. You can see the actual firearm there. To the left of the screen, you can see the actual firearm. Firearm's there. At the point that he was screeching, the wheels would have been screeching. He backed up. It actually hit the car after a short period of time, and the gun was discharged. Comes around, guns out. Does he know? Does he already know enough to know that that car is not going to go in forwards because it's wedged into two cars? Is there any possibility that somehow that car could dislodge those cars and they would become like that the cars could actually be pushed into him, endangering his life? In which case, should he have gone forwards towards danger? Which is another thing. Is that a reasonable thing to do if that's what he reasonably believed? As I said, the car, the black Audi, speeds back, hits the police car that had wedged him in, which NX121 might not have been aware of, and upon colliding with the car behind, the firearm was discharged. Comes around. And it's the police car that's crashed into. Gun's already out. Car goes backwards. hits the car after a very short distance, and the firearm was discharged. That is Stephen Matt.